All right, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you all for being here today. We've got a great panel discussion lined up for you, focused on navigating all of the different nuances of the job search. This is a webinar that was requested through our graduate students in our division, in Division H of AERA, as something that they would like to learn more about and hear more about during the off season here, in between the times when we normally meet for our annual conference. And for those of you who are not Division H members, welcome. We did share this information with other divisions and other groups as well, thinking that it might have some broader appeal outside of our own division. So welcome. I'm Brad McMillan. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Data Research and Accountability with the Wake County Public School System here in Raleigh, North Carolina on the East Coast in the US. And we've got 4 panelists to help you out here today who have decades of experience in a variety of sectors where education researchers work. Academia, nonprofit research centers, K-12, research and evaluation shops, and everything in between. So without further ado, I'm going to let the 4 of them introduce themselves and let them tell you a little bit about who they are and where they are. And for purposes of flow here, we'll go alphabetically by first name. So Guli, we'll start with you. And then we'll go to Dr. Jason Zhang and Dr. John Young, and then Dr. T. Bay will be fourth. And then we'll bring it back. I'll explain the format, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, Dr. Guli Zhang, you are up.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Guli Zhang, and a professor and a department chair in the College of Education at East Carolina University. We're in Greenville, North Carolina. Very happy to speak to everyone today.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jason Zhang. You can call me Jason. And I'm working at Florida Gulf Coast University. My research teaching area is in the research assessment evaluation. And I came from Canada. And I started my job in Florida 7 years ago. I come here. I hope give you more suggestions for your future professional development. Thank you.
Hi, John Young, Senior Research Fellow with Student Achievement Partners, the nonprofit organization founded by developers of the Common Core standards. Previously, I was a professor in the Department of Educational Psychology at Rutgers for 17 years. Director of the Higher Education Research Group with the Educational Testing Service, and the head of research for the International Baccalaureate Organization.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm T. Bay. I'm the Senior Coordinator for Assessment, Research, and Accountability in Norfolk City Public Schools. I'm in my 17th year with the school district and about 15 years with the department. My school district is located in the southeastern part of the Commonwealth, and we are an urban school district with about 28,000 students. Part of my major responsibilities include coordination, supervision, and monitoring of the district's instructional and assessment applications, systems and programs, as well as the district's assessments. And this may include collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data linked to the instructional programs and district's initiatives, and prepare any of our accountability reports for the school board, district, and our schools. And my team and I, we also provide and coordinate professional development and training related to the use of data and data analysis as it relates to benchmark assessments, formative assessment, and other assessment programs. And I'm really delighted to be here this afternoon with the panel.
All right, thanks all of you. I appreciate that. So the format and the flow here today is going to be hopefully a little bit conversational. We've solicited some questions from our graduate student membership about some of the things that they want to learn the most about from people who have a lot of experience sitting on the other side of the job search process. And so we're going to toss out some questions to our panelists and let them address them sort of in turn. We'll start by have one of you start with the question, and then the other 3 of you can sort of add to that as you want to. Once we get through the list of questions, if there's still time available at the end, what we'll do is we'll take questions from the chat from our attendees who may not have had an opportunity to contribute to this question list, if anything that comes up that you want the panelists to discuss. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to put this one out there first, and T, since you're already up, I'll give this to you, and then we'll go with any of the other panelists who want to contribute to it If I'm a graduate student or early career professional, how do I go about best choosing the people who I want to serve as my references or to write me a letter of recommendation when I'm searching for a job?
Thanks, Brian. As far as references and letters of recommendation, I think it's really important that you select someone who can speak to your qualifications and perhaps someone who's recent. It's really important that they're able to write your recommendation based on what they've observed, their interactions with you. I think it becomes a little bit more personal and they can cite examples of your work. And so I think that's important to have those types of relationships so that when it does come time for you to find your references or those who can write letters for you, that they can articulate all of the wonderful things that you've done in your area.
All right, great. Guli, would you like to take a stab at that? And then we'll go with John and let Jason finish up.
Sure. I think you want to choose people who know you very well and have a positive opinion of you from different angles of your career and also at different career points of your work. And also, it's a good idea to ask more references than the required number. For example, if you're asked to provide at least 3 references, then perhaps ask 5. Because it often happens that some of the people you ask couldn't follow through and provide a letter. So always be more prepared than under-prepared.
All right, great, thank you. John?
I would echo the same sentiments. I think references who know you well and can speak about your academic and your work qualities really are the most important things. All else being equal, if you have a choice between a more senior person and a more junior person, and if they know you equally well, then I would say go with the senior person. The other thing I would say too is kind of perhaps echoing what Guli has said is also think about your references as a group too. So it may be the case that not any one reference will know you in totality, but that all of them together should be able to paint a complete picture of you. So that's another way to kind of think about your strategy of who to ask for letters.
Thanks. All right, Jason?
I think it depends on which kind of job you are applying, right? For example, if you are applying for the faculty job, so mostly for the professors, we focus on 3 things: teaching, research, and academic service. So in your reference, so how can your reference support those 3 things, right? So maybe different reference give you different key points. Support, you are very good at teaching, research, and service. Maybe they have different focus. And also one more thing, I hope to give you one idea. You say, before you submit your reference, you need to connect with your reference, the professors. You say sometimes maybe they change job, maybe they change the situation. Even you send their names, but the university maybe cannot connect with your references. So this is a big issue. So before you submit your reference letters, before you need to connect with them as soon as possible. Make sure they will give you strong support. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. That's great. So we're going to move on to the next question, and we'll go in the reverse order that we went in this time. So we'll give Jason an opportunity to start off with this one. If I were a graduate student coming out of school and I was undecided about which particular field I wanted to work into, whether I wanted to pursue a tenure track academic position, maybe I want to work at a research center, or maybe I want to do some private consulting or even work in a K-12 research and evaluation environment or a state education agency. What advice would you have to someone who has no experience in any of those fields to figure out which of those is really going to be the best fit for them and kind of be the best career path for them going forward?
Actually, and I just share my experience. When I apply jobs, I should understand myself very well, which kind of job I want to apply. So I prepared 3 packages for the different jobs. For example, for the professor job, for the administration job, for the test center jobs, right? So I prepared 3 packages for the different kind of jobs. Also, I prepared different cover letters, different reference, different CV. So for the different package. So this is very important. You should understand yourself very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. All right, John.
Those job settings are very different in terms of their requirements and what you could hope to get out of them. So I think one thing is to think about what you feel your long-term goal might be, you know, in 10 years, where you'd like to go, because doing certain things will make it easier for you to continue on that path, but doing other things may start to divert you away from that. The two things I would say, especially if you're early in your career, one is to look for places where you'll have an opportunity to continue learning. Very much so if you're finishing your doctorate or, you know, early in your career, you know, you really want to continue to learn whatever skills are important, whether it's continue to be a good researcher, to write, to manage projects, etc. Sometimes students come out thinking, I've learned everything I need to learn and that's it. And that's really not the case. There's still a lot of professional development that should go on. So I would say look for places where you can learn. And the second is, particularly if you are interested in pursuing research as one of those things, to find opportunities for you to continue to publish, whether it's by yourself or with a colleague and so on. It's important to look at kind of the setting where you'll be. Jobs I've had later in my career made sense at this point in my career. You know, I've moved more into research management and leadership. And these weren't things I would have done earlier because in my current role, I'm actually the only researcher in my organization, which is very small, 35 people. Makes perfect sense if you're a senior person and you've had a lot of experience and you can provide guidance and expertise. But early on, it would not be a good place to be because there's nobody that I would have been able to learn from. But that's not important at this point in my career. So I would say look for people who could serve as your mentors in whatever positions you take on.
All right, thanks. And a good reminder also that where you start is not necessarily where you end up.
Yes,
so
that's right.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, Lee?
Yeah, well, I think first, know yourself. Second, know the environment. If you like research and publication and enjoy flexibility and stability, then academia is where you should go. I must add that the first 6 years of the pre-tenure period is pretty challenging if you get into academia. You get evaluated every 1 to 2 years for reappointment, and the department chair writes a progress toward tenure letter every year before you receive tenure. For the other field, I don't know as much as academia, but I want to just touch on a little bit. I think if you like to be a practitioner and like to work with children and teachers, then K through 12 is probably your path. And if you have a business mind, entrepreneur mind, then private consulting might be a good choice. If you really like to make a difference with your service, then nonprofit can offer you the opportunity.
Great, thank you very much. All right, T, would you like to finish this one up?
Sure, all really great things. I just want to add, just kind of look at your values and what you'd like to have as part of your day-to-day, because you will be spending a lot of time. If possible, try to spend a day or shadowing if you're not sure, if you're kind of trying to determine what you would like to do. Honestly, I didn't know if where I would be now 17 years ago. I just thought I would be happy in a school working with students, and it just so happened that the opportunity presented itself 15 years ago, and I took a chance and learned a lot. But the key thing that John had mentioned was the opportunities to continue to grow and learn. Maybe not in position, but just in your field or your day-to-day, because it's amazing what knowledge you acquire and how that will be put into practice at the times that you least expect it. But if you're ever unsure, see if you can spend a day or a couple of days, interview people, ask about the climate and culture, and then make sure that aligns with your values.
All right, great, thank you very much. All right, so in keeping with the pattern here, we'll go right back the other way, and T will let you kind of stay up at the podium here for a minute, and we'll move on to the next one. Obviously, you all as a group have a lot of experience in the field and in all these different sectors, and you've probably sat in on your share of job interviews. And some of them have probably been great, and some of them have probably not been so great. What is one thing or a couple of things that a job candidate, in your mind, really needs to make sure that they do prior to coming to an in-person interview, or I guess these days what would be a Zoom interview, in terms of making sure that they're prepared and making sure that they're going to come off as polished and professional and a successful option for the position?
As far as being prepared, I think the important thing is practice. Find a panel if you believe it's going to be a panel discussion or an interview or some sort of interview setting, and videotape yourself. You'll be surprised to see what you think you're doing versus what the audience sees. So I would say practice, find a panel, find some questions to answer, and also become familiar with your organization. Know what that organization's goals, mission, vision is, and so that you can speak or tailor and cater your answers to those particular goals and mission.
All right, thank you. Julie?
Yeah, I think you should get really familiar with their minimum qualifications and preferred qualifications, and so that you can make it clear to the search committee and all those who are involved that you are highly qualified in your presentation and your conversation with them. And also get to know the people on the search committee and those who are interviewing you, like the deans, chairs, directors, and so on. Also prepare your PowerPoint presentation really well, because that's one presentation that probably have the highest attendance. And if you do need to do a teaching demonstration, plan your lessons well. Make it very engaging and interactive so that you will receive high markings from the students and faculty.
All right, thank you. John?
Yeah, I would say similarly, spend as much time as you can doing research on the organization or the university you're going to be interviewing at. The more you know about your colleagues and their work, the better off you'll be. I interviewed for my current role about 2.5 years ago, and I knew who I would be talking to, and so I looked them up. I found a paper by one of my colleagues who helped write the Math Common Core standards. And then I also found a YouTube video of another one of my colleagues who worked on literacy. And so reading and watching those really helped me understand their thinking about things. And it gives you an opportunity, if it comes up naturally in conversation, to talk about, you know, your ideas on something and to share your perspective and to be able to question them. So, you know, you can't be over prepared. You're better off just spending time and being ready. If it doesn't come up, that's fine, but that's much better than being caught, you know, not being ready to answer a question. So, you know, use your time well to prepare. And then also, you know, when you are asked questions, you know, think about how your answer can put you in a good light. You know, how can your response show that you can be a good candidate for the role, that you can help the organization? I think the more you understand about an organization, the better off you'll understand how you fit, and you won't have to guess about those things.
All right, thank you. Jason?
I think the most important is to show how you can match this job, right? To show you what's your skills, what's your knowledge, how can you fit this job. So this is very important. So when we look at the people just for the interviews or others, so we want to look at how this person fit this job position. This is very important. Some people may be overqualified, but we still cannot give the opportunity for them because their skills and knowledge does not fit, not match this position. So this is very important. So when you apply jobs, you should understand very well what your skills, what's your knowledge, what their requirements, how can you show your skills and the knowledge, right, for this job, right? So this is very important, very important. Show those things just relate to this job. Don't show everything there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to grab a question that came in through an email here earlier today that was not on our initial list, but I think is a good one. We know that there's a lot of professionals who are trying to look for jobs, maybe not in the countries where they were educated or the countries where they're currently working. Someone in Canada who's looking to move to a job at a university in the US, or someone who is in the US who's looking for a position maybe in Europe or maybe in Asia or something like that. As a job candidate looking for something like that, what special things do you need to consider when you're considering not only changing jobs, but potentially moving from one country to another in terms of extra planning or other considerations? Jason, we'll go ahead and start with you on that and then work our way back in the other direction through John.
Okay, sometimes we found some people, you see, they already have a good job. Why they come here? So this is very big concerns. Because we want to get new faculty, right? We want to see how this person, their contribution here, can stay here long time, right? So this is big concerns. Why they change their position? Why they change mind when they want to come here? For example, I'm working at Florida. So some people come here. Why? If I think somebody just want to come here, want to retire, so no, right? So we want to make sure, right? Why you change your position, right? So this is very important. Show your reasonable the ideas, right? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. John, would you like to take a stab at that one?
Sure. I've personally not had the experience of working in another country, but in my last role, I was head of an international K-12 research department. And so I actually had staff who were in offices all over the world. And so in hiring them, what was really important was to really see whether they'd understood the educational systems that we would be doing work in and the countries they would be living in. So even if they'd not had direct experience being in those countries, an understanding of how well they can adapt and how well they can understand what's happening in other countries was really significant. As you can imagine, educational systems are really so varied, both K-12 and higher ed around the world, that you want someone who's not going to come in naively and not understand how different they are. So so I would say that was really kind of significant for us to look for somebody who really could adapt and was flexible and really could had some good foundational knowledge about what was happening in those countries we were interested in.
All right, thank you. Glee, anything you'd like to add to that one?
Sure. Yes, I am someone who is working in another country. I was born and raised in China, so I was born in a small farm village in northern China, and I later on, become a successful national leader in education in China already. Before I decided to teach myself English and come to the U.S. to earn a graduate PhD degree. So I think the experience tells me that you really need to weigh what you gain and what you lose in this such a huge decision. I was, as I said, already established in China before I came here. And from here, once I moved here, I had to start over from scratch. I became a student. In China, I was already a national leader. I wrote national unified textbooks that was used all over China in elementary schools across China in all the schools. And here, I became a student and I couldn't understand the professor when they were teaching. I started crying. I have to write papers that I don't even understand the title so well. The title was Discourse. So I really struggled, but it was all worth it. Now, I'm a leader in education in the US. I'm on the board of directors of American Evaluation Association. And I wrote the CIPP evaluation model book. That is the only book on the most widely used evaluation model in the world. So essentially become a leader in education and evaluation in this country. And in the meanwhile, I can still, initiate education reforms in China from afar using what I have gained, the knowledge and skills and national presence that I have gained. And I was also recognized by the US government as an outstanding professor and researcher. and all of this cannot be, I think, I feel that I made the right decision, but the downside is I miss my family in China, my mom, whom I can only call every now and then. And that's really a big trade-off. Now she's over 80, and I feel that I really should be by her side a lot more than what I'm doing now.
All right, thank you, thank you. T, would you like to add to this one?
No, not from, we don't have a lot. We have some teaching staff who we've recruited from different countries and whatnot. So for teaching, yes. But in our department, it's relatively small, the research evaluation portion of the school district. We do a lot of consultation and work with our local or surrounding universities and colleges. And so we rely on a very strong collaborative working relationship, and we're appreciative of those opportunities.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and bring it back the other way, and you can stay here, and we'll give this one to you. In looking back at people who've applied for positions where you either interviewed them or sat on panels, what is probably one of the most common mistakes you see made by job applicants in the field, particularly young graduate students who are kind of out trying to get their first job? What are some of the things they either do through the application process or through the interview that you see sort of common mistakes that you advise people trying to avoid?
I've only been on K-12 interview panels, so I'll speak directly about those. So as far as the application itself, it's some of the ones that you would think of, common grammatical errors, things like that should have been picked up, leaving out information, not completing your application, having missing documents, those types of things. And I can speak just about Norfolk City Schools and our process. For my area, we would get a stack of what we would consider qualified. They met all the qualifications. And then I would go through and look. I do look through the entire packet, read every cover letter, read every letter of recommendation, and we prepare for the interview panel. And so I'll make notes of things that I find in those, but then switching over to the interview process, I would just say be prepared. It's amazing going back to the first question is video yourself or take feedback from friends and colleagues and family even, because they may see things that you did not or you don't perceive of yourself. But always have some questions prepared at the end. The panel will usually ask, and so do you have any questions for us? Is there anything else? That sort of thing. You always want to have questions asked. I like to hear things like, what is the culture like here? What does a typical work week look like? What are some major initiatives or projects that you're working on? What does a team or structure look like? So those types of questions for the panel are always a good thing. It's impressive. And then this question always seems to stump people, and you'd be surprised is, so tell us a little bit about yourself. That question, which is very simple, it just seems to throw a lot of people off. And so we've gotten everything from, their life story to something completely not associated with the job at all. So I would say when you get questions like that, where they're kind of open-ended, general questions, find a way to bring it back to the position or the job itself. Find something that will connect that. And I don't know if we're going to talk about it because I think one of the questions is about gaps in your resume or a CV. That would be a good opportunity to talk about that. I know sometimes in your cover letter you may not be able to elaborate too much, but if you're asked those types of general questions, you could talk about gaps in your resume or CV.
All right, thank you, T. Lee?
Yeah, during the 5 years, serving as a department chair, we have hired 7 faculty members. And before that, as a faculty member, I have served on the search committee and so forth. So I have had the chance to review hundreds of applications and also interview in person a lot of applicants. I think in terms of the application package, common mistake might be that your cover letter is not well written. And also, when you're job hunting, you probably are applying for a lot of places. And sometimes you even forgot to change the institution you're applying to. That's a serious fatal mistake. And then, what you wrote in the cover letter do not match well to the job you're applying. And that's a really bad sign. So you will be immediately eliminated from the possibility of a phone interview and later on a campus interview. Once you are invited to campus interview, I saw some mistakes that are really, reflect poorly on the candidate. Those include unprepared for questions, or unfriendly and arrogant, and also seemingly unmotivated, basically low energy. Doesn't feel like you have the energy or enthusiastic to accomplish a lot if you are hired. And some candidates ask too many questions, and that puts the interviewer in a position that make her or him feel like he was the one being interviewed, and that is very off-putting.
Great, thank you. That's all very, very John?
Sure. So I think two things I would suggest candidates be mindful of. The first is that in most cases, most of the jobs you'll be applying for, you won't actually be a perfect fit for. You'll be just slightly off, or your qualifications don't exactly match what they're looking for, or even more than that. You might find a job you're interested in and you decide to apply, even though you don't necessarily see yourself as being the perfect fit. And if that's the case, then it's really important in your cover letter to really explain to the search committee, to the hiring manager, why you're applying for this job and how you see yourself as being a fit for this role. Because if you don't, then you're going to make them guess, and oftentimes that's not to your advantage. So, so if you obviously have a motivation for applying for a particular position, try to explain to the employer, what's your interest in this position and how do you see yourself fitting. I would say that's number one. And then I would say for two, the folks who are interested in pursuing research careers, either as a faculty member or at a research institute. And I think in particular, as you get more senior, is really to give the hiring committee a sense of what your long-term goals are, your long-term vision. You're going to be brought in and presumably you're going to be doing research on topics over a long period of time, 5 years, 10 years. I think having kind of a coherent vision is really important to see, because that's a sign of your maturity as your development as a researcher. And so it's not just about your next study, but what do you see you'd like to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years. And it's never even too early to start thinking about that, even when you apply for your first job out of finishing your doctorate.
All right, thank you very much. Jason, you can finish this one up here if you'd like.
Yeah, I will share 3 points there. You see, I was in the search committee. Also, I was chair for the couple of the search committee. So I found there are 3 key points. And when we look at the applications, first we can think about clear. Your application should be very clear. All materials should be very clear, right? Because the bachelor is related to the mathematics. When I look at your application, I should understand, okay, very clear, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those key points, just very clear. So if your materials are not very clear, so committee members will get the feeling, why? You didn't pay enough attention to prepare your application. Why don't we spend time look at your application? So this is very important. You need to pay enough attention, so you can let others pay enough attention. So this is very important. You should be careful. Look at your application, very clear. This is the first key points. The second key point is related to the marching. We come back to the marching, right? So job is there. We wrote the job requirements carefully, one by one. And then when you apply the jobs, you need to look at, okay, what's the key points you can fit for these jobs, right? For example, if we are looking for one person come here, focus on the teaching, right? But in your application, in your CV, in your cover letter, you didn't say enough about your teaching skills. So why we need to select you? So this is the big point. Your application should match the key points for the job, the requirement. This is very important. The third key point, I think, it should be evidence. Evidence. So as I read many applications, they just say, oh, I can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. However, how can you let me believe you can do those things, right? So you need to show your evidence there. For example, in our job, we want looking for one person can do the research in the large scale assessments, right? You need to show, okay, which kind of research you have, right? Which kind of projects you involved before, right? Which kind of the data, which level, and which major, which methods you use in your projects, right? Those are very important evidence there. If you only say, I can do A, B, C, D, E, without any evidence, so nothing, right? So be careful. I just provided those 3 key points for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. I'm going to grab a question from our audience here that was sent in. There's been a number of people asking about this topic, and I'll try and kind of put it all into one. And Jason, I'll start with you, and then we'll work our way back through the panel again. Obviously, a lot of people who are getting ready to graduate or have recently graduated might be looking at a job market that is layered on top of this viral pandemic that we've all been dealing with. And folks are wondering sort of how is that affecting how they should go about looking for their job. Things like in-person interviews and campus visits or site visits to organizations are probably a lot less common now than they were, say, a year ago. A lot more online interviews, and then also there's potentially concerns about budgetary issues in a lot of places because many state and local government budgets have been affected badly by the pandemic, and wondering whether that's going to have an impact on the hiring process or the number of open positions potentially that some organizations have. So from your perspective, what do you see as being sort of the things that people might need to think about differently or do differently if they're going to be going on the job market in the next several months while this pandemic is still raging and making so many things so difficult for people? Jason, you can go ahead and start.
This is a big topic. So I think you paid, you get. So that means you should work hard, and then you can get a good result. You need to look at the job market, right? So you need to understand your very well, prepare your material very well. You also need to analyze, right? Like research, what's the job market, right? For example, if you want to look at a job for the professor at the universities, you need to think about, okay, based on your major, your background, which kind of job, professors' positions you can apply, right? For example, if you can apply the job in the educational research position, right? For the education research position, which kind of research you can show you are good at? Qualitative, quantitative, a mixed method, right? So you need to show very, very well about it. If the job is related to the K-12, right? Assessments and evaluation, you also need to think about, okay, based on your research, based on your experience, right? How can you look at apply this kind of job, right? Do you have the experience in the teaching K-12? Usually, currently, most university, if they hire new faculty, the K-12, they should require you have 3 years teaching experience there, right? Do you have this kind of experience, right? So you need to think about it. Which kind of job you can apply? How can you apply, right? So this is very important. There are many things you need to do the research, right? How about the research? How about job market? How about their situation? How about the trend? How about your skills, your experience? How to make fill the gap between the jobs and your experience? So you have to do more research. So we always say job searching is a full-time job for the research. Thank you.
All right, John.
Yeah, I think the current circumstance is really kind of, it's really helpful to be flexible and I think a little bit more open to possibilities that you might not think of otherwise in normal circumstances. The best analogy I can tell you is about 12 years ago, some of you may remember that there was a big recession on in this country, and the circumstances are actually kind of similar because a lot of universities, especially public universities, scale back on hiring because of economic concerns. So at that time, I actually had an opportunity to hire a postdoctoral research fellow, and the pool of applicants that year for postdoc fellows was actually a lot better than we would normally have seen, I think, because a lot of those folks would have gotten university jobs. But the good part of the story is that a year later, the perfect job opened up for her at a university, which she applied for, which she's now in, and now she's a tenured full professor. So the moral of the story is sometimes, you have to think longer term. And quite honestly, if she had taken a university job instead of the postdoc with us, the job that she has now probably wasn't available then. So it was just kind of fortuitous that by having taken the postdoc with me for a year, and then a year later applying for this job, things really worked out perfectly. So I know it's sometimes hard to see that because it's hard to see past the next year, but it's not just the next year, but it's the rest of your career that you want to think about.
Great, thank you. Really?
Yes, the current budget situation is serious, and our college is experiencing 2.2 million budget cut. So across our university, the hiring have all been frozen. So I think this is across the U.S., a trend across the U.S. because of the budget shortage, and also because the upcoming student enrollment decline cliff due to the number of this age group of people, just the number is smaller. So higher education jobs are fewer than before. That means those who are looking for jobs need to be more active in searching for jobs, and sometimes have to take what they can get at this time, and knowing that in the future you will be able to move up. And if you are lucky enough to get an interview, to find the institution who is hiring, then you want to make take advantage of that opportunity, present the best of you. And very often we did an interview lately, and through Zoom or Microsoft Teams virtual format, and some candidates just make themselves just not looking so good. The background is blurry, the image of himself is dark, you can't even tell how he looks. So the technical, it would be very, very bad to lose on these technical details. You have a very good data, you are a very good presenter, but people can hardly see you, and that kind of things. So do your best, make every aspect the best possible, and I wish you all have a chance to find a great position that you like. Despite
Thank you. T, any thoughts on this topic about how to search for a job under these unusual circumstances?
I just have one thing to add. This almost takes a bit of creativity. Don't, just think, okay, I want to work in a university or college or research or evaluation in a K-12 or nonprofit organization. We come across lots of folks who have a certain skill set, generally speaking, in research and evaluation that can be applied in other areas as well, medical, other sciences, and things like that. So kind of think in terms of that, just broaden your job search and take a look at some of the other things. Going back to one of the questions, if you look at, you may have, say, the minimum qualifications, let's say the non-negotiables, but maybe some of the parts in the job description are things that you don't have experience in or what have you. You can still speak to those. Don't just completely cancel those job descriptions or job opportunities out. I would take a look at those, look at your skill set as a researcher and evaluation and see how they can be applicable. And talk to those and how you could contribute to that organization or that area. So you just have to be more creative, put in certain keywords in the search engine and things like that, looking for your next job.
All right, thanks. All right, T, we'll start this one up with you and then go back in the other direction. Each of you, we do have two folks working in academic settings, but you all have different experiences in different sectors throughout your career. So, as a graduate student, we have professors and we see them in a certain light, but we don't really know what the day-to-day life is like necessarily for being in one of those positions, because we see them at the front of the class and during their office hours. But give folks a sense of, if they're interested in your field, K-12, academia, research center, what's like a day, a week in the life? Like what percentage of your time is really spent doing certain things? How much off hours work can people respect? Sort of give them an idea of what it's really like to kind of walk that walk. T, you can go ahead and start.
Well, a typical day for me, I start very early and I end very late. I think just because of the demands of the job. We handle a lot of different aspects in the school division or school district. And so I spend a lot of time answering emails, responding to those types of requests. You put out a fire here, there's another one over there, or maybe 3 other ones that are about to come up. So in a typical K-12 in my area, because we handle the assessment part for the district, we have busier seasons, if you will. The beginning of the school year from about August to about the end of October is our busiest time of the school year, and then towards the end of the school year. So it will be 12, 14-hour days easily during that time period, and then it kind of levels off where you could catch your breath for the next few months, and then it ramps up again. We just do a lot of different things, and it's hard to articulate that. I do welcome folks to come and shadow, a member of my team or myself, because we do a lot of things that's not listed in your job description. Having to interact with other senior administrators, our superintendent and her cabinet, or perhaps the school board, having those types of opportunities, learning diplomacy, that sort of thing, learning how to handle conflict. What else could I say? We can go on and on, but yeah, I think sometimes it's hard for me to articulate. I will say I wasn't expecting the day-to-day that I see now. If you were to ask me, 17 years ago, what it would be like, because it almost seems like it changes every year. And of course, everything that's going on this year, we had to become creative and innovative very quickly and make things work and happen as quickly as we can. So I want to say that was a bit of it helped us kind of learn a lot about our organization and how things worked. So, that's the best I could say about being in K-12 in my area.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of that sounds very familiar. No 2 days are the same. So if you're the kind of person who needs variety, it's a good fit, that's for sure. Guli, from the academic side, you want to take this one next?
Sure. I want to first begin by saying that from faculty moving to administrator as a chair now, the difference is night and day. When I was a faculty, my life was easy. I felt that it was easy. You know, you teach a couple courses, and you only need to observe 5 hours within a week of office hours. So you stay in your office 5 hours a week to answer in case students need to come in to see you with questions. And then besides that, you can be anywhere else doing your own work, as long as you meet your expectations, which is, in my institution, it's about 2 publications a year, and do some service, community service, service for the institution and for the profession. And you finish your teaching, and that's all. So that was a very nice life. And then I became a chair. Then the life is entirely different now. I have 25 full professors, 4 faculty in my department, and about 50 part-time, because we also have to have university supervisors to supervise our interns. So 75 faculty members, and we have lots of students, and everything that you need to handle, you know, conflicts among faculty, our strategic plan, our annual report, our students' complaints, and so our budget cuts and so forth. So I'm not going into the details. So now I have to sit in the office before the pandemic, sit in the office from 9 to 5 at least, to just in case faculty students need me. So I need to make myself available. But during the pandemic, I have been just answering lots of emails and be available virtually all day long.
Wow. As a follow-up to that, Guli, as a new faculty member coming in, I heard you say something about like 2 publications per year is kind of expected for someone maybe pursuing like a tenure track position. What's the teaching load going to be for an assistant professor coming in for the first time? What could they expect at an institution like this?
Okay, in my college, their first 2 years is lighter. They get a reassigned time to start up their research well. So they get a 2-2 teaching load, which means 2 courses in the spring and 2 courses in the fall semester. 2-2 loads for the first 2 years to get them, to set them well on the path on publication. And then after that is 3-3.
3-3, okay, thank you very much. All right, John?
Yeah, so, you know, because I've had a lot of different roles, my work obviously has changed over the course of my career. But, you know, I think for the audience, you know, thinking back to my time as a faculty member, you know, when I was at Rutgers, as you might know, is a Research 1 university. And so working towards tenure, I mean, I would really try to make sure I was focusing most of my time and energy on my scholarship, you know, on publications, on designing studies, on writing grant proposals, and then always to have multiple manuscripts that you're working on, you know, 1 or 2 that are out for review, another 1 or 2 that you're finishing, another 1 or 2 that you're starting on. So always having things that are continuing to go on. So I tried to spend the majority of my time focusing on my scholarship, you know, as a faculty member, you know, teaching. So both stand-up classes, but also working with students on their dissertations. You know, that takes a fair amount of time and energy, but it's something that I really liked and it's important to do. And then committee work will be the other part of it. I pretty much every year I was a member or the chair of my department's graduate admissions committee. So you spend a lot of time around admissions season, both in the late fall and in the spring, both looking at applications and meeting in committees and making decisions. So those were kind of the typical things. Summers would be slower. And as an assistant professor, I tried to be careful not to teach too much in the summer, because summer is really kind of a good time to really try to, you know, if you're disciplined, to really work on the things, you know, to move your research along.
Great, thank you. All right, Jason?
I think you say that as a professor at university, you say usually we have 3 things to do: the teaching, research, and service. 3 things. So we always ask us, how can we keep the balance, right, among the teaching, research, and the service? Or many new faculty or new assistant professor also always complain, okay, I need to teach classes, but how can we do the research? How can we work for the academic service? So this is a big challenge for the new faculty. However, you need to think about it. You need to arrange your time and how to integrate together. You see, we have a very famous model we call the Boyer model, B-O-Y-L-E-R, Boyer model. How to integrate the research, teaching, and service together. For example, currently for the teaching, we switch the traditional class to the online class. So many challenges there for students, for teachers, for the administrators. So there are many challenges when we teach class, right? So how can we think about how can we improve our online teaching? Okay, we meet some challenges. So we can open some new projects, right? Combine the research and teaching together. Get the questions from your teaching process and think about it and set up a new design. Combine your teaching process. So and in the end, you get a lot. You can get a good idea to improve your teaching. You also collect data. You get the research. You get the paper. So in the end, you have a paper. You have good teaching process. This is only one example. Also, you see, when you do the service, academic service, for example, I work in the program evaluation team at my university, right? So that's academic service, but I combine it as a research with my major program evaluation, right? So during this process, I work with the different department and program leaders. We look at the program, we look at the problem there, we analyze their situation, the process, we have paper. During this process, we got the projects, we got the funding, we got the papers. On the other hand, we make a lot of contribution for our program development, right? So those are the two examples. How to integrate teaching, research, and service together. Don't waste time. Don't divide it. Teaching is teaching, research is research, service is service. You need to combine them together. This is very important for you to build up your future. You say even we have only the 2 hours for each class for the office hour. However, I spend a lot of time for the students. You see, even for the online teaching, we need more communication, right, with students. So during this process, you may find some, right, give you feedback, improve your teaching. You also maybe give students more suggestions, and then you can do the collaboration, research with your student for more projects, for more papers. So I think professor is a very wonderful career. You have many space, right? You can improve a lot. Just don't waste your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. I'm going to grab another question from the audience here real quick and send it back through you, starting with you, Jason. Obviously, every institution and every sector of employment for ed researchers kind of has their own application process and that sort of thing. But as part of that, usually you're asked to somehow showcase your work, whether it's your teaching, whether it's research you've done, maybe publications that you've done or whatever. What are some of the best ways you've seen in terms of how candidates can sort of showcase that? Obviously sending links or, a CV that's got some references on it is one thing, but nowadays with technology, we have, electronic portfolios and people have their own blogs and websites where they promote their own work and show videos of their own teaching and talks that they've given and that sort of thing. What's the best way for a candidate, either from a teaching perspective, a research perspective, or a data analysis perspective to showcase their work in a way that's really going to resonate with a committee and maybe make their work stand out from everyone else's?
I think when you apply jobs, right, you need later the search community understand your work, your skills, your knowledge very well. For example, I give you one example for the teaching, right? So well, I have the one table, right? Just like a flow chart. So what course I taught, what course I can teach. That's I build out one flow chart. So just one page, right? So when I show this page, like the flow chart, so everybody can understand, okay, what's my knowledge skills? Which course I taught, which course I can continue to teach in the future. So very good. So look at very logically, very clear a flow chart. So maybe better. So something you say, even you have the maybe 20 pages to show your teaching, but if you have one page flow chart or table show your teaching, right? So that will be better. So nobody want to look over your 20 pages teaching the statement. They maybe simplified, clarified. So you need to think this is a research. How can you create, right? One showcase, show your skills and knowledge quickly, clearly, logically. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, John, we'll take this one back to you if you'd like to have a shot at it.
Sure. So, thinking about, think about who the audience for reviewing your work will be. So if you're in an academic setting, yeah, the first will certainly be the search committee. So people who are going to be your fellow colleagues, and still by and large, people are still, I think, sending publications, copies of their publications. So you might be asked to submit, 2 or 3 of your best. And so, you want to be judicious and figure out what's going to be most appealing to the people who might be reading it. So it's still old-fashioned, but that's still kind of the way we would do it. In other settings, in a non-academic setting, again, it's going to depend a little bit on who's going to be reading your work. The current role that I have, because it was a newly created position and there were no other researchers, didn't really make a lot of sense for me to send a copy of a publication because that really wouldn't have the impact that I would want. And so one of the things that I did send in my application was I gave the presidential speech at the Northeastern Educational Research Association conference several years ago. And so I included a copy of that because I actually spoke about the topic of equity. And that was something that the people who are hiring were interested in their candidates. And so, so I would say, yeah, generally think about who your audience is, what they're interested in, and what would make the most impact in terms of your qualifications.
All right, thank you. Lee?
Yes, I think hot links is very important. Nowadays, we often submit an electronic application, and embedding links to your own website, embedding links to your publications, each paper, in case they're interested in a particular publication, in case they want to see a full version of your data. So you give them options, but what you present to them is still succinct, but they have the option to read in full if they want to. I think that's the key.
All right. T?
We like creativity, anything like that, but we can also look at traditional like e-portfolios, anything that folks want to send us so that we can review. We like to see a variety of projects and things that you have done that kind of speaks to the job itself or the area of work. They're kind of very similar to what Jason had mentioned earlier. You want to be specific and logical in what you're applying for and what you're presenting to the group. But sometimes I will say, if somebody put in some additional information about their skill set, it may not fit the position here, but I may think of, oh, well, I know this other organization, or I have a friend or a colleague in another district or somewhere else that I think might be a good find for the person. So sometimes I've seen that as well. But, just like Julie had said, the web links for us to see different things is always very helpful.
All right, thank you. I think T, I think you addressed this one a little bit earlier, but you kind of hit it and kind of moved off it. But this was one that also came from our group. If you're applying for a job and you've got some space in your resume where maybe there was a couple of years where you weren't working, maybe you took some time off, maybe you raised a family, or maybe you had a job experience that's really pretty far afield from what you're applying for and really doesn't really show necessarily a straight line trajectory through your work history. How do you deal with that during an interview if you get asked a question about what did you do during those 2 years where we see a gap in your resume, or why did you spend 5 years over working in this completely different field and then say come back to ed research or whatever? What's a good way to do that?
I think you can always find opportunities in that, whatever it was that you were doing, whether you were you took a gap and did something completely different, or went and started your own business, or was helping family members or anything like that. There's always something that you can pull from that will illustrate perhaps your work ethic, your work style. You can always pull that back to the job itself. The job is not just those bullets that you're doing, a task or a responsibility. You also want to speak about those soft skills or things that you can't really portray in a CV or a resume. How you cooperate or collaborate with others, how you handle conflict. When you are faced with adversity, how did you handle that? What were some difficulties that you were able to overcome? What were some things that you learned about yourself? So those are things that you can always pull in, because I know that during those gaps, you may be doing something else. I'm sure some folks were just not lollygagging around. There's something, and even if you were, I'm sure you can find something that you can pull together during your conversation or interview with the panel or interviewer.
All right, thank you very much. Julie, any advice on that particular topic for potential job searchers?
Yeah, I think a gap or leaves can be a plus instead of a minus. So be honest and let people know why you took that leave or have that gap. Often it's family, you want to take care of your family. That's understandable, right? People will admire you for doing that if you have to take, put your career on hold and take care of a baby, for example. You may also want to make it clear that you want to branch out your experience, enrich your experiences, so you gain more perspective. And all of this can be made clear. That's a plus to you. So will reflect it positively on you instead of negatively.
All right, thank you. John?
I'd echo those same sentiments. Yeah, I think it is important to be honest about what happened there. And you don't have to be defensive about it. People do choose to do different things, and that's perfectly fine. But I think as Ty said, if you can tie back what you learned in that experience to what's the current role, I think that's really a good thing to do. Whether it's something intellectual or behavioral, again, put it in a positive light. I think that's good for people to understand that this is a positive experience rather than one that's not.
All right, Jason?
I think there should be some gaps when you apply jobs. It's true. You say you maybe apply the jobs, you don't have relevant experience. For example, for the faculty position, you need to have teaching experience. However, so some of our graduate students, you don't have the enough teaching experience. So how can you do? When you want to apply jobs for the faculty, you need to think about how can you get some experience for teaching, right? You can try to get more like the TA position, right? Teaching assistant, the position. During this process, when you do the TA, you maybe also can help your professor teach some section. For example, when I work as a TA and for the survey research course, so my professor have to leave 2 weeks. I told him, no, don't worry, I will teach that part. I will work very well, and then I taught that 2 weeks class. And also the professor gave me very good reference for my teaching. Also, you see that mostly if you apply jobs at the university, at college education, right? You need to have some teaching experience for the K-12. So you need to try, maybe go to the local schools. Okay, can I do some teaching volunteers, right? So start from the beginning, start from the basic opportunities to build up your teaching skills and get more teaching experience to support your job application. Also, you see, mostly when you apply jobs, maybe this is not in your local, same city, right? If, for example, I came from the Toronto in Canada. So when I applied job in the Florida, they asked me one critical question. Okay, you have some experience in the Canada, but how can you teach in the Florida? So based on this issue, you need to think, how can you answer this question, right? Firstly, I have many teaching experience in China, in Canada, right? Secondly, so I have the study, compare the different teaching system between the Ontario and the Florida. I know what's the difference, right? For the teaching, what's the difference and how can I adjust? Also, I show I have very strong skill and knowledge. I can adjust my teaching in the future. So you think about it. Okay, based on your job career goals, you need to go back, think what you need to prepare, right? So my suggestion is for you, during your study at the university for your graduate programs, don't waste time. Try to think about it for your future goals. And then come back, look at your current situation. What and how can you prepare yourself for your future? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. All right, I've got one more here on my list that I want to send back through, and Jason, we'll start with you and then go to John, back the other way. When a graduate student or an early career professional is looking for jobs, I mean, there's obviously a lot of different places where people can look. They can look on the website of an individual university, but that's only going to allow them to see positions that are available at that institution. When you advertise for a position, when you're hiring, or we're thinking back to when you were looking, where are the best places to look for positions, either on sites like LinkedIn or professional organizations, or where are the places where you're most likely to advertise your positions when you do have them?
This is a very interesting question. I just share my experience. You see, that when I look at job, so I think, okay, my job career maybe in the 3 directions, right? One is the test center, one is the administration, one is university. So I build up 3 directions first. Then I will search, okay, for each direction, which kind of the resource I can get a job or information, right? Some from higher education, some from AERA organizations, some maybe from a government, like Ontario government website. So I use Excel, list different group of the job search resource. So different group of different links, different resource. And then I check their website, their resource. Also, I set up the accounts, right? So if they have new jobs, they will send to my email address directly. So build up a good system, and then so you can continue get the different kind of information. So I also want to recall one one idea from doing, right? That's we learn in our life, right? So this ongoing the process, you can learn, you can improve, build up your good system, your system, your style for a job effectively. Thank you.
All right, John, from your perspective, either from academia or from the nonprofit research world, where's the best place to even begin looking for someone who's looking to make that move?
Yeah, so it's, one of the challenges is that there's no centralized place to go. One place that has both faculty and staff positions is a website called higheredjobs.com. So that's a place that has jobs across all fields, and so it's national. That's probably a good place to look. Interestingly enough, sometimes the advice you hear is, well, it's through contacts, but the job I had working as the head of research for the International Baccalaureate, I actually found that job through a posting through the AERA website, through AERA job search. So that was posted there. And the current job I had was actually posted on LinkedIn. So my experience was a little bit atypical, because most times people say that that's, it's usually through connections, but it is possible to find them through more public websites. So you have to scour a number of different places, and depending on where you want to be situated. I will also put in a plug for the regional ed research associations, because those are often smaller, and those are often good sources, because there you'll be able to make more contacts, and you'll be able to get more insights as to who might be hiring, and to learn about hiring opportunities. So there's about 8 of them around the country, and I would encourage you to get involved in one of them. And I've done a similar workshop through my regional ed research organization too, and those are all supported by AERA. So I would say that's also another place where you can find connections and information.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the websites for those state organizations are actually available on AERA's website as well. So,
yeah.
Guli?
Yes, chronicle of higher education is very important. So you set up the system, they automatically send you the jobs you are looking for that fit your criteria, your preset criteria. Again, John and Jason mentioned the AERA, and LinkedIn is also very important, and higheredjobs.com. And I lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, if you are interested in particular university, be sure to get on their own website and look at their human resources webpage and find their jobs there.
All right, thank you. T?
For the school district, we're always having job fairs, but for my area specifically, I would just double up on reaching out to smaller regional type of organizations. And there was one more, sorry. I had a flash here of a text message. I'll have to come back to it if I remember. I'm sorry, Brad. Just got a late text there.
No worries at all. No worries at all. All right. I've got one more question for you all. We've had a lot of folks in the Q&A today asking questions about what kind of things you need to be mindful about in terms of diversity and inclusion issues when you're in a job interview, in terms of how you address those things, and how you sort of navigate that, whether it's as a direct question that comes out or maybe a function of the group of people that you're meeting with, the panel that's interviewing you, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll go ahead and go back starting with T and move back the other way.
I would just go back to learning the values of the organization, and also be honest and be upfront. How have you represented diversity or inclusion in your studies and in your research, your current work? Talk about that. Talk about your experiences or collaboration, your work with those areas. I would just kind of focus on those types of things and make sure that you talk about that in your conversations or in your interview with your panel or interviewer.
All right, thank you. Guli, from the academic side, what are some issues that interviewees or job seekers need to be mindful of when they're asked about diversity and inclusion during a job interview, or how their work represents that?
Well, first of all, diversity and inclusion is currently a big topic, dominating the culture, and it should be. And so as a result, higher ed, taking our institution as an example, our university, are actively looking for people with a diverse background. We intentionally to go out our ways to build a big pool of candidates with a diverse background. And we intentionally hire people so that we have a diverse faculty team. So if you are someone who has a diverse background, please, I would advise you to make it clear that you represent somebody who have different culture, different gender, and any kind of diverse angle that you can represent. You want to make that clear, and that may give you an edge. Also present to the search committee or interviewers that you are for inclusion and diversity. You have work, maybe publication to show, and you have been involved in such work, and that will be very positive, have a positive light on you as a candidate.
All right, thank you. John?
Yeah, so, in my work currently, in the nonprofit K-12 world, we're really interested in candidates, whose values and philosophy align with ours. There are still so many inequalities that persist in our society, and some of it is unfortunately, through K-12 education that, we're looking for people who can help us resolve and deal effectively with these problems. So certainly in the current climate, and certainly in the face of the demographic changes in the population, we're really looking for people who have an abiding interest, who really value things we can do to make education a force for democratizing our society and for reducing inequality. I think those are really kind of key elements. So value, philosophy, insights, experience. I think those are key things we're looking for.
All right, Jason?
I think diversity is a very broad content. When you apply jobs, like the assistant professor, is the entry level, basic level. So when you apply jobs, the search community will look at how well you make a big contribution to the position, to the university, to the college. So this is very important, right? For example, the culture difference, right? So my background is the Chinese culture. So I can see I have many learning experience, teaching experience, and research experience in China, Canada, United States. So I have many global issues, right? In my courses, I can involve different kind of idea, culture, and theories, stories in my class. So gives you more the global issue, many different ideas. So this will make contribution to our teacher education, right? Also, when you talk about show diversity, you maybe combine with the research, teaching, or service. For example, for the teaching, right? You need to show your ideas in the teaching. How can you take care of diversity, right? How can you take care of different kind of students, different gender, different culture background, different language background. Also, you think about student different learning styles. So how can you take care of those differences in the class? How can you encourage all students to improve, to learn. So those are very important. Not only discuss diversity, you need to combine with teaching, research together. It will be better when you take the interview. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're coming up on the 4 o'clock mark here, so we're entering the lightning round of this event here. I'm going to give each panelist one more crack here to just share whatever remaining advice they might have for our young graduate students who are out there seeking to enter the job market. We're going to start with Jason and work our way back. Anything we didn't touch on today that you want to leave as a little piece of sage advice for the folks who are listening?
Okay, and this is the I forgot to let you know. There is a website. Indeed, this is a very good tool to search a job. This Indeed is to search different website the information for the jobs. Indeed, INDEED. You can try. Okay. The second one, give you a suggestion. Try to do your best for your goal. Thank you.
All right, John. Any last words?
Sure. You know, I know that the job search experience can be really daunting and scary, but you know, it's also an opportunity to learn about what your values are. I think, as Ty said at the beginning, you know, what is it you're interested in? You know, where would you like your career to go? And so I think it's you know, it's a chance for you to think about it, and really, you know, it doesn't have to be as intimidating as it seems. I would say that's the first thing, and the second thing I would say too is that you know, it's really a chance for you to make an impression on the world, you know, to make your mark in the world. And so, you know, think about the forum and think about where you'd like to do that kind of work.
All right, Guli, any last thoughts? Oh, you got on mute.
We talk a lot about substance, but style is also important. A word we know is dress for success. No inappropriate clothes, no strong perfume, no gum-chewing behavior. Present yourself as a professional who is positive, uplifting, well-prepared, and energetic. Be courteous and likable. Write a thank you email afterwards. And I wish you the best in your job searching and hunting, and wish you the best in your career advancement.
All right, so you ready to finish this out?
Sure, thanks. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I wanted to circle back to my brain freeze earlier. I wanted to recommend usajobs.gov. It's the government website, and they have lots of opportunities there that are open to public applicants. And the last couple of things I wanted just to piggyback on what Julie had said. I think it's great to make sure, yes, that you're presentable, that you're dressed appropriately, you know, the no perfume, no gum chewing thing. And on top of that, make sure that you're in check with your social media platforms. We do test that and take a look at that as well. So, you know, just kind of think of in terms of that. And then just to segue off of that, that's also an opportunity for job search as well with some of these organizations, either on the Twitter feed or IG. They have things that they share there that might spawn some ideas of some places that you might be interested in.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists today. I really appreciate you guys taking out some of your valuable time at a busy time of year to hopefully provide some good knowledge and support and tips for our graduate students out there. I did drop a link in the chat to our division's website where a recording of this webinar is going to be posted probably sometime right after the holidays. For anyone you know who may have wanted to be here but couldn't today, please feel free to share it. So thanks again to all of our panelists, and thank you to AERA for your support for this event today. I hope everyone finishes out the year 2020 in a good way, and happy 2021 to all of you once we get there. Thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks to AERA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.